So this is my first one via Zoom, but I'm excited to be here, and I commend all of you. Tina, congratulations on completing that, and I commend everybody for being here and starting the process and not being afraid to do it, because a lot of times people get paralyzed by fear and they don't want to know, and then things aren't even as bad as they think they are. So congratulations to everybody for coming and doing this, and I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I have a presentation that we'll see if it works here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of a realtor. I always tell people that it's really the best thing as a buyer that you can get free. I'm a believer in you get what you pay for, but in the case of the realtor, because we are actually paid by the sellers, we represent the buyers, and you don't typically have to pay anything for us to represent you. So I encourage everybody to get a realtor, someone that you can, establish a relationship with. It's going to listen to what you're looking for and what you need, and not be afraid to remind you of that when you go through the process. Of course, ultimately you make the decision, but I just say that it's our role to be that kind of calm in the storm. And just because buying a house is typically the largest purchase that most people make in their lives, so it can be very emotional. I'm going to show a video in a little bit. Hopefully it'll do, but just a little bit about me. I'm a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill, and then I got my master's degree in business from Meredith College. Wife and mother of 3. I used to have teenagers, but now my oldest is 20, so I had to change that. In previous life, I did human resources. I've been in real estate since 1997. And one day, and I also have a home-based travel business, and one day I was trying to figure out what all of that had to do with one another, and I realized that it was all about helping people. So in HR, I did a lot of recruiting, especially college recruiting. So I got to help people get jobs. As a realtor, I get to help people find a home. And then as a home-based business owner, I get to help people either travel or start their own business. So been in real estate since 1997. Just recently changed the name of my company to Make Your Move, because I wanted to kind of broaden my umbrella. And our slogan is "We've Got Your Back." So I love to travel. You can see some of the places that I've traveled to, and I absolutely love everything that I do, all 3 of those careers that I just mentioned. This is our team. It's 5 of us all together. Most everybody is part-time, but we do, work together and support one another. And so I'm just going to show this quick little video. Hopefully everybody can watch it. It is Richard Pryor, but it's pretty edited. But I tell people this is why you need a realtor and the emotion. If you haven't ever seen this movie, I definitely encourage you to go and watch it. Richard Pryor in this movie has lost his job, and so he and his wife are moving from New Jersey to Boise, Idaho, and they are riding around and looking. So they've seen some other homes, and this is the one that they love. So we'll just, hopefully technology will creep. Maybe not. Okay, so it's not working, even though it worked when I tried it before. But basically, the wife is like, "I love this house." The sellers, as they're going through the home and looking at it, he'll periodically say, they'll say, "I love the windows," and he'll say, "We're taking them with us." Sometimes he'll say, "Just kidding." Sometimes he won't. And so when they go back after they've closed on their house, the windows are gone, the pool is gone, and all the carpet, everything is gone out of the house. So it's an extreme example, but it's very true, because when I started in real estate back in 97, our offer to purchase and contract was 3 pages, and now it is 15. And you all should have a copy of that in the information that will be provided, and we'll kind of go through that in a little bit. So why do you need a realtor? Some of the things I just talked about, the feelings that you experience, and just somebody to, walk you through the process, not just to show you homes, but to help you deal with those emotions. And in this market, I was talking to Eliza earlier before you all got on, and it's really a seller's market. So it's very competitive. And that's something you definitely need to be prepared for and to understand. But as a realtor, we're going to represent your best interest as your buyer's agent, help balance those emotions, walk you through the process, show you homes, both new construction and existing. So even if for sure that you want to build a new home, I encourage everybody to still have an agent, because that agent for the builder represents the builder, not you. So, and it doesn't cost you any extra. They're not going to take any off the price of the home because you don't have an agent. So make sure you get that representation. Handle the negotiations. We work with the listing agent to negotiate on your behalf. Complete the contracts and addenda. So I said that the offer to purchase and contract is 15 pages, but that doesn't include any number of additional addenda that could need to be attached to that. And like I said already, it's the best free thing out there. So types of agency, there's 3 types of agency. And I think that's also working with real estate agents is also one of the forms that was going to be included, but it talks about the 3 types of agency. There's a seller's agent, buyer's agent, and dual agent. Seller's agent, when you're riding around and you see those signs in the yard, that means that agent has signed an agreement with that seller or that owner to say that I'm going to list your home for sale. I'm going to put it in the MLS and have a sign in the yard typically and make it available, provide all the information and details, and then they have agreed to pay that particular seller's agent a certain amount of commission, and then that seller's agent agrees to split that commission with the buyer's agent. So that's how we get paid without you having to pay us. And once you have your buyer's agent, we can show you any home in the MLS. If for some reason there's a home that's for sale by owner, typically I just closed on a for sale by owner last Friday that we found on Zillow. The seller listed her home for sale on Zillow. My buyer actually happened to see it and sent it to me, and she was willing to pay a commission so that still my buyer didn't have to pay anything. But there's also the possibility of a dual agency. So if, say for instance, you were working with me and me or someone else in my firm ended up listing a home that you were interested in, that's when the possibility of dual agency comes into play. And, but you always have the right to say, I would rather have my own representation, or I'd be okay if I represented you, but someone else in my firm represented the seller. So there's always, don't ever feel like you have to be forced into a situation that you're not comfortable with. And any agent that you work with, one of the first things they should give you is a working with real estate agents to talk to you to explain those 3 types of differences. And that is not a contract, so you don't have to be hesitant to sign it. It's just something that we have to provide so that you can know that those options are out there. So steps to purchase a home. First step, I mean, you all are doing great because you're here getting the education about it. So that I commend you again for getting that education, because it is a big step. And once you purchase that home, there's no more landlord to call when you need to have something fixed. You have to be prepared to do that. So this is, I love these home buyer classes because they get you prepared better than if you just do it on your own. So first step, get pre-qualified with a lender. I like to talk to my clients and kind of point you in the direction of the best lender, just because there are lots of different loan programs and products out here, lots of different loan types. And so when you work with your agent, hopefully they will know what different options are out there. You know, is the credit union best for you? Is there, because a lot of you work at Duke in the healthcare profession, there are different programs that have down payment assistance that are only available to people that are in the healthcare field. I personally am a workforce housing certified, and that means that anybody that works with me that is in healthcare can qualify for $1,000 grant. It's not a loan; you don't have to pay for it. So it's good to know what you're looking at and what you qualify for, so that your realtor can help point you in the right direction, because that's going to be part of your team. But once you get with that lender, they're going to pull your credit, have you work out any issues. I know that you all are doing some of that in this class. Figure out how much you can afford, and then how much are you comfortable purchasing, because just because they tell you can afford based on that debt to income ratio, you want to think about how much are you really comfortable. They might tell you can afford $2,000 a month, but maybe you want to be at $1,500 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever, to make sure that you are able to continue to save and not be house poor. And when you get in that house, you're going to want to buy new furniture. You're going to want to still be able to go out to eat, maybe eventually go back to the movies and things like that, go on vacation. So you want to make sure that you're able to maintain those, that, that enjoy your life and not just feel like you're a slave to your home because you maxed it out. And I tell a lot of married couples, and especially people that aren't married that want to buy a house together, buy on one income, so that if for some reason something happens to one of your income, that you both, you can still afford that house and, still be able to enjoy life and things like that. So if that's an option, definitely do that. And again, like I said, best loan product for you. Let's see. Technology. Okay, there we go. All right. So once we, once we get you pre-qualified, know how much you are going to be looking for, I want to sit down and have a conversation with you. Identify your needs versus your wants. I say my job is to get you all of your needs and as many of your wants as possible in a home. So we'll, talk about, are you looking for a single family home? Do you need a yard? Do you have pets? Do you have children? School districts, not as much, since there's a lot more flexibility, but those are things that we want to talk about. So identify all of those things. Do you need a ranch home, or you want to be 2-story for sure? How many bedrooms and bathrooms do you need? Do you definitely want hardwood floors? Things, just different things like that. Community amenities. Are you one that likes to go to a pool and have those types of things? So where you want to be, schools, land. I've had people come to me and say, I want an acre of land. And then we sit down and talk about the reality of maintaining an acre of land. They're like, oh, maybe a half acre is good. So we'll just talk about those things. And then once we've discussed the things that you're looking for, what I do is I set up an automated search for you. And there's a lot of different websites. I tell people that typically our information is going to be the most, read this because, our information is going to be the most up to date within the MLS. So, but I mean, there's lots of different websites that are available for you to, Realtor.com, Zillow, all of those things like that. But we're going to set that search up for you. You'll be notified as soon as something comes on the market. And I tell people in this market, be ready to go immediately to see a home. Ideally, I like for us to see 5 to 7 homes to start out with, but that may or may not happen. So if something pops up that you want to see, let's get in there that day, lunch break, dinner break, whatever break that you have, and go see those homes. So once we've gotten you pre-qualified, we got the search, then we get to start the fun. And this is just a couple of sample MLS sheets. So these are what you'll typically see. It will provide all of the details that the listing agent has put in about the house, a brief description, pictures, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, how much land, if there are HOA dues. All of that information will be available in that MLS sheet that you'll get a notification on when you get when homes come up that match your search. So if you're looking at townhomes versus single family homes, then that we definitely want to make sure that we're always looking carefully at the HOA dues, because townhome HOA dues tend to be a little bit high, and that can change how much you can afford. So that's something that we definitely want to discuss with your loan officer. So ideally, I like to select 5 to 7 homes. Realistically, we'll be doing good if we can get 2 to 3, maybe 4 that match the criteria for you to go out and see at one time, just because it is such a seller's market at this time. But I'd like to go see those homes. I like for you to see multiple homes, because you might see the first home and it has everything that you think you want. And then we go to the second one and it has that one extra thing that maybe you didn't think about, or maybe it's, on a more level lot. It can be anything. So I like to at least see, like I said, ideally 5 to 7 homes, but if not, at least 2 to 3. Once you've seen some homes and you select the home that you like, then we'll decide on an offer price. The first thing I'm going to do is reach out to that listing agent and say, hey, do you have any offers that you're expecting? Because that's going to impact, how we're going to position our offer. And then I'll do also a search to see what homes in the area are selling for, because a lot of times as homeowners, we get attached to our homes, and we might decide that they're worth every upgrade and update that we put in it, but the market may not agree with that. So we want to make sure that we're making a good offer that will be supported by the appraisal. Then we'll make our offer. So then we go into our offer to purchase and contract, and I'm going to show that to you in just a minute. But that offer to purchase and contract, like I mentioned before, it itemizes everything associated with the home. Like I said before, it was originally 3 pages when I started in the business in 1997, and now it is up to 15 pages. It details the parties to the contract, the details of the home, where it's recorded, things like that, all of the financial terms that are going to come into play, the time frames, personal property versus fixtures, and then it also talks about the buyer and seller responsibilities. So let me see if I can get that up. So this is a sample offer to purchase and contract. I'm going to go through it really quickly. Like I said, buyer, seller, address of the property, legal description, where it's recorded, because believe it or not, people have bought the wrong home or not bought what they thought they've been buying. Here we're going to put in the purchase price, and I'm going to talk a little bit about due diligence and earnest money. So when you get ready to make an offer on a home, you want to make sure that you have your due diligence and your earnest money. Due diligence is money that is made payable directly to the seller. It is non-refundable unless for some reason the seller decides not to sell. But other than that, that is the good faith money that you're giving to that seller for them taking their house off the market. Earnest money, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, or I'll definitely give time to, if you can jot them down, and I'll definitely answer questions at the end. Earnest money is refundable. It is held in escrow, typically by the closing attorney. Most real estate firms nowadays don't hold earnest money, but so the closing attorney that will typically hold that earnest money. Now, all of these are completely negotiable. A good rule of thumb that I try to use is to come in at about 1%. So for instance, if you were buying a $100,000 house, I would try to come in about a 1% total of $1,000. So, and I'll usually try to make the due diligence the lower amount, so maybe 300 or 400 to start for due diligence, and then the balance in earnest money, so that you're not, putting yourself out there. But quite honestly, nowadays with the multiple offer situation, that could be significantly higher than that. The due diligence can be significantly higher than that if you want to, make a strong offer. But we'll talk about that as we go through. And then if there was any seller financing, you put all of that information here. Here, we just talks about the earnest money and where it's going to be held. Like I said, typically with the closing attorney. These are your dates. The effective date of the contract is once everybody, both the seller and the buyer, have signed and dated it and been notified. Due diligence date and due diligence fees. So here is where you will put your due diligence date. And so during your due diligence period, that's when you are going to be doing your home inspection, doing your appraisals, getting additional information that the bank needs. Hopefully you have been completely pre-approved, and we're really just focusing on getting the property approved. But know that even though you may be pre-approved, the bank is still going to want updated bank statements and check stubs and things like that. So I tell people, make sure that once you start this house buying process, do not go buy any cars, don't buy anything, just to keep everything straight and narrow. Hold off on getting new credit cards, applying for new lines of credit, or anything like that. You want to be on the straight and narrow with your finances. Don't have any large cash deposits in your bank account, because otherwise they're going to want to know where everything came from. So just make sure that you're keeping all of that. But during this due diligence period, that's when they're going to be getting updated bank statements. You'll do, like I said, the bank will order the appraisal, make sure that the house is valued at what you're offering for it. We'll do the home inspection, negotiate any repairs and things like that. Typically, I try to do about 3 weeks, 3 to 3.5 weeks, because that usually is long enough to get your home inspection, negotiate. The bank is able to get the appraiser out and things like that. So around 3.5 weeks is usually what we put in there. And then settlement date, usually anywhere from 30 to 45 days, depending on the lender and what their process is. And if you're using down payment assistance, that may impact how long we have to do that. If there's any special assessments, we will let them, include that in here, proposed assessments and things like that. Fixtures and inclusions. I hate that I couldn't show the video because this is where that really comes in. But fixtures are things that are permanently attached to the home, usually like light fixtures, blinds, the hardware for curtains. They can take their curtains, but the hardware, anything that's permanently TV mounts, that's the new one. But you can see here's a list of all the things that are considered fixtures and should convey with the house, unless you specifically say not, right down to garage door openers, alarm security systems, built-in microwaves, stoves, swimming pools if they're built, in-ground swimming pools, mailboxes. Like I said, now they've had to go through and try to cover every scenario. So these are just some of the things that they have covered in here. If there's anything that's leased that's going to be taken, we have to put that in here, like fuel tanks, satellite dishes, things like that, security equipment. If they're not planning to convey, we have to, need to put it in there. I try to tell when I'm listing a house, I tell my sellers to take down anything. If they're taking grandma's light fixture, if they're taking that upgraded stove, remove that before you start showing your house, because you don't want somebody to come in and fall in love with that one item. And that's why they want to buy the house and you're not willing to convey it. So if there's any personal property that we're asking the seller to leave, most commonly refrigerator, washer, and dryer. But I did have recently somebody, the for sale by owner, actually, that my buyer ended up buying quite a bit of her furniture separately. But if there's anything that they're going to leave, including with the house, we'll itemize that here with the personal property. This talks about the due diligence, their inspections and things like that. Once we have the inspection back, these are some of the items: inspections, insurance. Go ahead and get your, order your insurance so you can make sure that there's no reason that the insurance company wouldn't insure it. Things like if the roof is too old, sometimes insurance companies won't insure them. So those are things you want to just make sure that you're dealing with and getting done during your due diligence period. Surveys, they are very, very important. I've had cases where I had somebody on my team who sold a house, and turns out that the part of the house they didn't own the land under part of the house. I had somebody in a very rural area that was going to not do a survey, and they just, after I talked to them, they decided to go ahead and do the survey, and it was good they did because the well wasn't on their land. So just, anything that you just want to, invest that money up front to know, so you can make sure that you're getting what you're expecting to get. If there's a flood zone and things like that, all of those things you're going to find out during your due diligence period. If you, as the buyer, happen to own a property and you have to sell it, you have to disclose that. So also understand that during the due diligence period, even though you're going to do an inspection, this house is expected to convey as is, but we can ask the sellers to do repairs, but they're not obligated to do repairs. So they may say they will do something. They may say they will allow a credit. They may say they will reduce the price, or they may say, nope, I'm selling it as is, and we're not going to do anything. So those are things that you're going to, you'll be able to negotiate during this time period. Once you get past the due diligence date that we've established, then your earnest money becomes non-refundable. So we want to make sure that we've done everything that we need to do, or we can possibly do, to make sure that your loan is solid, and that the house is, going to be in the condition that you're okay with purchasing. This buyer representation in 5, this is important, more so now, especially with multiple offer situations, because sellers will look at it and say, okay, is this person paying cash versus someone doing FHA financing that, or VA financing that, in the appraiser may say XYZ has to be repaired. So if you're looking, this is more so for for sellers to know what type of loan you're getting, and then they can compare if there's a multiple offer situation, because if there's somebody paying cash, that may be a little bit more favorable to them than somebody paying, doing conventional. That's not always the case, but these are the things that they're going to look at. And in the past, this used to be important to the buyers, because if for some reason your financing fell through, then you could, or if it didn't meet this criteria, then you could use this as a way to get your earnest money back. But with due diligence, it's not as significant for the buyers with that, because really during your due diligence period, you can walk away from that home for any or no reason, and the seller is only entitled to get that due diligence and not your earnest money. If you, like I said, if you have to sell a home, you have to disclose that. If there's any contingencies for you being able to qualify, you have to disclose that in here. This talks about the disclosures. So a seller is obligated to provide a residential property disclosure that talks about all of the things: the age of the HVAC, the age of the roof, what type of plumbing, and if there are any issues that have not been resolved, they are to disclose it here in this residential property disclosure. And there is an option for no representation, so those are things that we can talk about. And then this mineral oil and gas rights disclosure. There was a builder several years ago that decided that they wanted to sever the rights to any mineral oil or gas without telling the buyers that they were severing the rights, so that if any value came in the land, that they would be able to still maintain it. So now we have a new disclosure that has to be shared with the buyer, so they know if those rights have been severed or if they're planning to sever the rights. This talks about the buyer's obligation, that you're going to do what you need to do to pursue purchasing their home, so that the seller doesn't have their house off the market for extended period of time, and you're not doing what you need to do to purchase the home. But typically, because you're putting down due diligence, you're going to be making sure that you do your part. The seller representation, if for some reason that seller has not owned that home for a year, we need to know that, because certain types of loans you can't do, like FHA loans. If they've only owned that house for a certain amount of time and they're trying to sell it for a significant amount more, they've come in and done repairs, you as an FHA borrower could not buy that home. So we need to know that. Lead-based paint, if the house was built prior to 1978, you need to know that, because you might want to do some additional inspections. If there's a homeowners association, we want to have all of that information in here, because like I said, specifically with townhomes, and there's even new home communities, single family communities now that are starting to have HOA dues that are $100 plus a month. They're starting to take care of, they want to do the lawn for the whole community. So those things we want to know and make sure that we are including, so we make sure that there's no issues with your financing.
Latrice?
Yes.
So are we supposed to be looking at slide 14?
No, you don't see my screen. You don't see the contract.
Your screen, but it's stuck at slide 14.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let me see. Hold on.
I wasn't sure if it was just me or if it was.
No, I thought I would switch to share. Let me see. How can I?
Maybe if you stop sharing and then you reshare, it might have just gotten frozen.
Okay. Now, do you see the contract?
Yes.
Okay, so I've gone through all of these pages that I thought you all were able to see. I'm so sorry. So
it's in the folder, so people could pull it up with the audio. We're good. But
okay, so I've gone through all of those pages. Everything that I was going through was over on that. So let's get back to where I was. Owner, HOA dues. This just talks about the sellers, that they're going to provide clear title, and that their liens will be paid off. And your closing attorney will do a a title search and all of that for you. Here is where your deed is going to be made to. So I mentioned earlier that with married couples, I sometimes recommend that you just buy on one income. But in North Carolina, if you are married, then you both own the home, but you put in here that the deed would be paid to both of you. If you are single and you buy a home, then in order for you to sell that home, both spouses have to sign, unless you do some sort of prenup that says that they don't want claim to that house. So that's always something to keep in mind, that if you buy a house before you get married, that in order to sell that house, both of you have to agree to that. If you were asking the sellers to cover any of your closing costs, and in this type of market, it's really best if you have saved your money to be able to pay your own closing costs. But if you are asking the seller to pay closing costs, then that's where we'll put that. Prorations and adjustments. Taxes are prorated. The seller is going to be responsible for taxes from January 1st to the date of closing, and you'll be responsible for taxes from the date of closing to the end of the year. Depending on what time of year, they may go ahead and pay them. If not, then they will put it all in escrow, and then they will pay it when it's due. If the house for some reason is rented and you're going to let the tenant stay there, then that's prorated. HOA dues, things like that are all prorated. If you'd like for the seller to provide a home warranty, you're going to ask for that here. If a house is more than like 5 years old, I do encourage you to ask for one. And even if the seller will not provide it, then I encourage you to get one, just because the home warranty will cover things like the HVAC, plumbing, so that you don't have any unexpected expenses. When I bought my very first house, the water heater went out maybe within like 2 weeks of me buying it. And fortunately, wasn't in real estate then, but fortunately the seller was providing a home warranty. So I was able to just pay the deductible and got a brand new water heater. But imagine if I had to, come up with the money to buy a water heater right after buying a house and buying furniture and things like that. So definitely encourage that if you unless you have, a nice little stash saved away to cover things like that. If anything were to happen to the house while you're under contract, then it's on the responsibility of the seller. You're not going to be obligated to buy a house that's been damaged by whatever, fire, storms, or earthquakes, whatever. There's a delay in settlement, so we will put in the closing date typically towards the end of the month. But if for some reason you don't make that closing date, this contract automatically gives you 14 calendar days. So the seller can't have this other offer that came in after that's $5,000 more that they're baiting to, have bated breath to accept. They have to give you 14 calendar days, and then after that, you have to start negotiating if you're not quite ready to close. Possession is typically at the time of closing. I definitely prefer that the seller be out before, and that the buyers don't move in. But if that's an absolute necessary thing, then we can, deal with that. I mentioned earlier that there's several addenda. This is just a few that can be attached to this 15-page offer to purchase contract. And then there could be, attorney drafted forms that could be included. The contract cannot be assigned without written consent of everybody. So you can't just say, oh, I'm going to buy this house and I'm going to assign it to someone else to let them buy it, unless you've gotten consent from everybody. Typically, tax deferred exchange is not going to apply. But if for some reason somebody was selling a house and then was trying to buy something else to avoid paying taxes, that's you'll have that disclosed in here, that you all are the only parties. If for some reason something does not get done prior to closing, it does survive the contract, but we want to try to make sure we have everything done. This is the entire agreement, other than if there's any addenda. You all don't have any side agreements outside of, the seller say, I'm going to kick you back some X amount of dollars or whatever. You can't do that. Everything has to be disclosed to the lenders and be a part of this contract. Computation of days, unless otherwise specified, it is calendar days, not business days, other than the number of days that the party had, the attorney or whoever's holding the due diligence earnest money has to cash the check. Let's see. The rest of this is just really signature pages and talking about wire fraud and where we put the information. And it is important, if you can, to make sure that you have the addresses for both the buyer and the seller, because if for some reason you need to terminate at the last minute, you need to be able to get in touch with that to communicate that information. You want to have all of the listing and the selling agent firm information included. And then this is just where the pages where any exchange of monies is acknowledged. So that due diligence will be acknowledged by the listing agent and or the seller, and then earnest money will be acknowledged by the whoever's holding it, whether it's the attorney or the listing firm. So that is the contract. I will stop here and see if anybody has any questions about the contract before I go back to the. Anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay.
Yes, I do, Latrice. With the due diligence money, that amount, who comes up with that figure? Is that something just that the buyer and the realtor come up with?
Yes, we'll discuss it, and things we'll take into consideration is, of course, the purchase price of the home. If there are other offers on the table that, because that's one of the things that sellers look at to determine which offer they're going to accept. So it's all completely negotiable. So we could offer, $1,000 of due diligence, and that seller could come back and say, I want $2,000. And then at that point, you'll decide whether or not you're okay with that. And
okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, let's see if I can go back to the presentation. Let's see. Okay, so we went over the sample offer to purchase and contract. And again, you do have that in your package. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about that. So just some expected costs. I've already mentioned the earnest money and due diligence. And like I said, those are completely negotiable. And then it'll be different too if you're doing if you're doing new construction. The builders typically have their own contracts and they have their own guidelines as to how much you have to put down and when those are due. So earnest money and due diligence are some of the money. Down payment and closing costs. So your down payment, if you're not doing 100% financing, so most first-time home buyers, it might be a FHA loan, so maybe it's 3.5%, or maybe a conventional loan where it's 3%. So that's your down payment. That is separate from your closing costs. Your closing costs are typically around 3% of your purchase price. But those closing costs include like lender fees, attorney's fees, your inspection costs, money that you have to put into escrow for insurance, because for most of us, our taxes and insurance are going to be escrowed, and so they're going to put in a certain amount for that when you close on your house. So you need to have both down payment money and closing cost money, unless we can, find a program or 100% financing or some other down payment assistance program that you qualify for. Money for your home inspection. So there's a regular home inspection. There's radon. If you're going to be out in some of the rural areas, there could be well and septic. There's pests. So inspections can run anywhere from $300 to almost $1,000. If if you're out in a rural area and have some of those other inspections that you're required to do. Appraisals, they can run anywhere from $300 to $500. The banks will collect those. Surveys, again, they can run anywhere from $300 to thousands of dollars, depending on how much land you have and where it is. Moving expenses. So you've definitely got to, be prepared to move your stuff. So whether you're renting a U-Haul and, buying some people some pizza to help you move, but just be prepared for that. And then also with the moving expenses, you can include, turning the utilities on. Some utility companies will charge a security deposit no matter what your credit is. So you want to just, be prepared to have your utilities turned on. Like I said, the house may or may not have a refrigerator, washer, and dryer in there. You may have to go buy that. So just those are things that you want to, make sure that you're saving diligently so you can have all of these expenses covered. So when you're under contract, that's, like I said, when you're going to be doing your home inspections. And I already mentioned the regular home inspection, radon. Radon is an odorless gas that has been known to be a carcinogen. So if you do a radon test and it's greater than, I think it's 3.1 picos or 3 or 4, I can't remember right offhand, but if it's greater than that, then you can ask the seller if they will do mediation and put in some sort of system to make sure that there's no radon, that radon is being, the air is being directed outside of the house. Pest inspections, this is, so you want to know if you have termites. That's what this pest inspection, I had somebody ask me once before if it would cover like bees and things like that. No, they're just going to be looking for things that can damage your home so that they can make sure that the value is preserved. Appraisal, then we're going to negotiate on the repairs and things like that. Whether we're going to have them to do repairs, if we want to get them to do a credit and things like that. These are all the things that are going to be happening. All these balls are going to be up in the air while you're under contract. The lender underwriting, they're going to be going through everything with a fine tooth comb, again, reviewing your bank statements, tax returns, all of that stuff. Hopefully they've already done it, but if you've spent more than 30 days, they're going to want to continue to get updated bank statements, updated pay stubs, make sure that you haven't quit your job and things like that. And it's okay to change jobs, but just discuss that with your realtor and your lender if you're going to do it. Don't feel like you're stuck, but you definitely don't want to go from like a W-2 job to a 1099 job, because that will cease the process. So if you're planning on making any changes, like I said, it's good to have that good relationship with both your lender and your realtor so that you can have these conversations and know how, because not that you can't do it, but you just need to know how to do it. And once they've gone through all of the underwriting process, then you have your loan approval, you're clear to close, and we'll be ready to go to the closing table, and you'll sign all of those documents and come away with your keys and be a homeowner and be ready to move in. Oops. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions about anything that I've said? I know I've given you a lot of information and it's all via Zoom. So does anybody have any questions on anything that I've said? No? Clear as mud to everybody? Okay. Well, Larissa, did you, so Larissa, were you going to say something? Do you have a question?
I was just going to, I was just getting ready to make an announcement at the end.
Okay. So that is pretty much everything as far as, buying a house and that process. Just some pictures of past clients. This one right here is pretty special to me. It was the very first house I ever sold, and then I got to sell it. And then she bought this house just last year, 2018. So that's pretty special to me. So that is all that I have, unless anybody else has any questions about the process. Like I said, I commend you all. I've actually worked with 3 people out of this program that I can think of right offhand, and one of them just closed on her second house with me about 2 weeks ago. So I love it. That's all. Stop share. I'm turning it back over to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Latrice, I'm going to put your email into the chat so people can contact you if they have any questions later on. And thank you so much for being here and taking your time just to help people learn. And our
I'm sorry.
Last chance for questions.
Skip the slide, the question slide.
So the next program is our second Thursday with Duke Benefits, Sarah Howe, on retirement, healthcare, or you can ask about any kind of benefits. And if she doesn't know, she'll get back with you. Any other questions or announcements?
I just wanted to add, Patrice, do you have like the links so that people can see that slide that tells about that the fixtures. The one, was that the same one that had Richard Pryor in it? Isn't there a link to that?
Yes.
Because it's important for people.
I can find that link for you and put it in the chat.
If you could put that in chat so that they could see that.
Oh, and one more thing. Cherie, are you still there? I was just wondering what your last name was, so I can put you down on our list.
Last name is Reed.
Reed. And if you